Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing a Phyrexian Dreadnought deck, but boy howdy is it an interesting one. So we've got what you'd expect in a Phyrexian Dreadnought deck. So we've got 4 Phyrexian Dreadnought, 4 Dress Down and a couple of Stifles to help get there. Now what we have that's a bit different is this, Greater Good. Now if you're unfamiliar with this, it's a 4 mana enchantment that says sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. So the only creatures we're sacrificing to it are Endurance sometimes, which is just going to be a draw 3, discard 3, which isn't great. But then we've got this Dreadnought, which is going to be draw 12, discard 3. Or this Urza, which is going to be draw 6, discard 3. Now obviously Urza we can sacrifice on the front half as well when we're just evoking it, because you can sacrifice creatures at any speed. This also protects our creatures, well I say protects our creatures from removal. It means that they get to get us cards and be worthwhile that way. We've also got a few Urza Saga that we can smash some Greater Good tokens. We can smash some tokens into Greater Good and get some card advantage that way. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. The rest of the deck is a relatively straightforward bant shell for the most part. We've got these Force of Wills, we've got these Source of Plowshares, we've got Brainstorm, Ponder, Endurance, Urza is kind of standard Banty type control stuff. You have 4 Lotus Petals to help power out some of our... Well, we're trying to play a 4 mana enchantment, and because of the text on this card, it means we can afford the card disadvantage of playing these Lotus Petals, which do also buff our Urza Saga. And that's pretty much it. We don't have any funky lands apart from Saga, so no Besaidu's or anything, no Karakas in here, which is interesting to me. I thought maybe you'd want a Karakas in here, but this list I was sent didn't have one. We have 1 Soulguide Lantern as a tutor target. The reason we're not running Shadow Spear is because we've got these 4 Uros that are hopefully going to be gaining us enough life anyway that we won't need the Shadow Spear. Whether or not we miss a trample, I don't know, but this guy does have trample, so I don't really think we're going to have any problem pushing through little guys. That's pretty much it for the main deck. Relatively straightforward. We're going to draw a bunch of cards and bury people that way. And also just make some really big guys early on. Because of the Lotus Petal, we can make turn 1 Dreadnought off of Stifle Petal as well. Sideboard wise, we've got a couple more Endurance. These are obviously for graveyard decks, but also for Delver, which I guess you can call a graveyard deck these days. The list I was sent didn't have these in the sideboard, but I wanted them. I think Delver is the best deck at the moment, and I've been seeing it a lot in League, so I just wanted to make sure I had a little bit of extra stuff to shore us up against that. Carpet Flowers, any sort of blue deck with Wastelands in. This is going to help us cast our Greater Goods and just be able to leap ahead of our opponent's mana and be able to deploy some of our bigger, scarier things. A few Force of Vigors. We're not great versus the old Blood Moon. Like, we can still beat Blood Moon, sure, but this can take out all the things in the decks that are running Blood Moon, like all the Painter things or all the Mono Red Prison things. Also against 8 casts, we're going to need this to blow some bits and pieces up. So yeah, pretty straightforward, that one. Another piece of Graveyard Hate for a bit more turn 0 interaction. And then 3 Force of Negation for combo decks because we need a little bit more turn 0 interaction. And then if we need to go into sort of a fairer, grindier game, we've got these Prismatic Endings to blow stuff up. These can also blow up all sorts of permanents if we need to. Like if we're against a Chalice deck, this is going to be good for that. So we've kind of got all of our angles covered, I would say, here. And drawing lots of cards is a good thing to do in Magic the Gathering. So I think this deck should be alright. I know there's been a few people playing various Greater Good Phrexian Dreadnought decks lately on the old League. Not too many of them, but some of them have got some 5-0s. I think this deck should be quite a fun one. Alright, before we jump in, like, comment, subscribe. They cost you nothing, they help me out, and they make me feel good about making content. So why not do these things? I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs, so if you can help me do that, that'd be wonderful. Alright, let's jump into a league with Bant Phyrexian Dreadnought. We are on the play for round 1. We've got an emergency Euro if we need it. We've got some removal. We don't have much in the way of... well, we don't have any counter magic or anything like this, but I think this hand is fine. We don't have any ways of filtering our draws, but we do have a couple of Euros that we can use to draw cards with. So I think this is keepable. We'll probably start out on the Flooded Strand. This way it denies a wasteland on us. And if we need to, we can cast a Plow. It's important to note that our dual lands are basically just Flooded Strand, just Trops and Tundras. Okay, so we have, and there's a Saga here. Play that out. We can just start playing the Saga game for a couple of turns. And if our opponent goes to interact with our Urza Saga via a Wasteland, we can always stifle it. If we had another land, I'd be almost tempted to play out this Urza, but I think it's just better right now to hold up Stifle and invest some mana into our Urza Saga here. Right, so this could be a bunch of, okay, so it's an expressive iteration deck. I don't think it's worth bidding off a Stifle just to like mess with an opponent's land here. I think it's best to use that for something a bit scary. Abundant Growth. So this is more like the old Blue Zenith builds. They have an Abundant Growth in the Exile Zone. So we could Stifle this if we wanted to. This will deny our opponent a land and a card here. I think this is worth doing. So it denies them fixing in quite a big way. Right, let's crack this. We're going to go get ourselves a Tropical Island here. We don't get to make the token, unfortunately, for doing that Stifle play. But what we denied our opponent was a lot. So I think we will just make this. So we have a choice here. So we could have saved the Stifle to make a Phrexian Dreadnought this turn instead. But I think we're probably just on the Solgai Lantern line here. Like our opponent's probably going to have some graveyard graveyard interaction, but this also gives us another draw if we need it. We do need to find a bit more land. We could have got the Petal there to help that out, but I think we're in a fine situation. Okay, so we've got Tundra here. Noticeably, we can't cast the Endurance right now. Snapcaster Mage, just as a guy. Yeah, if they want to trade this for my Construct token, that's fine. Right, now I'll play this one out. Green, blue, blue. Yes, I will put this Urza Saga in. Alrighty. So we can play the Greater Good next turn if we find a green source. And then we can... okay, they're just scooping up. They haven't actually seen some of the things we're doing. That Stifle basically won us the game, though, so that was nice. But we could have played the Greater Good next turn if we found a green source. And then we would have been able to just get a Dreadnought off the Saga and draw 12 cards. And that's probably game right there. Okay, so our opponent is one of these sort of slower Yorion type builds. So we probably just want some... I don't think we're going to need much in the way of... I don't know if I want to be playing Force of Wills. Like, we don't have any Hydroblast or Pyroblast effects, which is the problem. So if we need counterspells, we're going to have to be paying a premium rate for them. We've seen the Snapcaster Mage. I'm interested in these Endurances. Maybe we just don't want to card disadvantage ourselves too much. But then again, I guess actually we don't need the Lotus Petals to go fast, do we? Because we're not playing that sort of game. This is going to be a slower matchup. So this is probably fine. There is an argument for the Force of Negation. Because if we're hard casting it, it's a lot easier to hard cast. The Prismatic Ending is obviously something that plays relatively well here. But I think we need like a Force of Will for our opponent's Minsk and Boo is quite important here. Is it the Force? Is it the Prismatic Ending? Or is it the Force of Negation? That's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. We should just have the worst of all worlds and have one of each. That feels terrible. That's not really something we should be doing. So we're also cutting down on our blue cards to do this. By putting the ending in. Hard to say what the correct play is here, really. Obviously, someone who's played this deck a bit will have an idea. I don't want to get killed by Minsk and Boo. We can't Minsk and Boo for 4 without because we don't have a Lotus Petal anymore. Maybe we'll keep Lotus Petals in just to make our constructs bigger. Keep 3 in. Alright. We're playing a Urza Saga deck with Dress Downs in, which is a bit of a weird one as well. So this hand is a turn 1 Phyrexian Dreadnought, which is pretty good. Guess we can keep that. Although it's not actually very good in this sort of matchup, because they can Prismatic Ending it quite easily. Field of the Dead. Okay, this is one of these sort of like really long game grindy ones. So we could just ponder here, or we could cast our Stifle Naught. I think I'm going to fetch a basic island here. So we have a ponder we can cast off of it. So let's cast this Dreadnought and stifle it. This was like one of the best things you could do once upon a time in Legacy. A long time ago now, but... Alright, no white source for this guy, to blow this guy up. That's pretty good for us. I think we want to ponder first here. Dress down, carpet. I don't think we're casting any of these, are we? I think we go any order and shuffle. We're looking for a land, really. We'll play this one out. This means we can get a rebuy on Dreadnought in a bit anyway when we get one out of here because we've got the Stifle in hand. I don't know what they can have for 0 mana. Okay, and end of turn Brainstorm. So this might get a concession if they don't have an answer right here and now. Okay, looks like they've probably got an answer. Maybe Plains into Prismatic Ending, something like that. There's the Plains. There's the ending. Exactly as predicted. Sure. So I think we're going to Brainstorm this turn to try and secure a third land drop here. Okay, so we have a land drop. We can make a Stifle this turn, or we can try and stifle the... Well, we're definitely not playing this greater good. So we could try and stifle a Dreadnought now, or we could try and get one off of the Urza Saga. And we can play out the Tundra. Do we want the... Like, they have a counterspell, I can just hit the Stifle with it anyway, so I think we are just playing out Dreadnought and stifling it again. We can get a Lotus Petal off of the Urza Saga to cast our Uro. Carpet of Flowers. Sure. So they're going to have a lot of mana for their second main phase. It's going to have to be... Well, they're going to need a removal spell, right? They got a 12/12 here. Add 2 green. Besage you. Okay, this is good for us. Not great for us, but it's fine. Yes, I would like to shuffle away those cards I don't really want. And I have this forest. Excellent. And I put Yorion to hand. Cool, cool, cool. Do we want to make another Saga token now? Or do we want to make the Uro this turn? This is only going to be a 2/2 guy. Doesn't feel that impressive. I think we're supposed to be floating mana here. And I think we just get the Saga Lantern here. Get rid of this Besage in case we have a life from the loan deck. Cast this for blue-green. We did not draw a land there. Okay, so we might have to cycle this Saga Lantern. We could have cycled it in response, but just in case our opponents got something this turn, like a Snapcaster for the Brainstorm on their turn. Okay, so just casting an Endurance. It's not great for us, but it's fine. We lose our Uro. I think we probably cycle the Lantern now. Okay, a land. That's something. And a Dress Down. So this is getting us a tropical island. I think we play out the greater good. Take the 3 from the Endurance. And then at any point we have creatures, we can just draw a load of cards off of them. So next turn we can flash in our Endurance. And if they try and kill our Endurance at any point, we get to draw a load of cards. Obviously it's only draw 3, discard 3, but that's a lot of hand fixing for us. We're saving the plow for the Orion that we know is coming. Okay, so they added some mana with the flowers and then didn't use it. Okay, so we have a Stifle here. So this is a pretty easy one for us to do now. We flash this in our opponent's end step, in our opponent's combat step. And it dodges Prismatic Ending and gives us a chance to block. We're going to keep holding up this plow. Green, green 1. Here comes the lad. We've seen Snapcaster made, so we want to get rid of that graveyard. This prevents some damage to me. Also lets us get a hit for 3 in potentially. Abundant Growth. Sure. You get to draw a card here. They're casting the Yori on here. It's a little bit annoying, but what are you going to flicker? Obviously, you're going to flicker the Abundant Grove. Okay, they're going to reset our graveyard again. So we don't want to use our plow until our graveyard's been reset because we'd like to have another card in our yard in case we find an Uro. So let these guys come back. Let's go nuke my graveyard. And then before they get a card off of this, I want to plow their guy. Right. Back to us. A Brainstorm. Let's see some more cards. Okay. These are all pretty nice. Not really convinced the Dress Down's going to be doing a lot of work right now, but it does cantrip, and we want to play it before we get to play our Saga tokens, I think. So I think we're putting Stifle Ponder on top. We can play our card here. Play our Carpet Flowers. So we're both getting a lot of mana from each other here. And this carpet's going to trigger. We'll say no. We'll hold up this Dress Down in case they play anything with a come into play ability. We're certainly incentivized to cycle this because the Urza Saga tokens aren't going to be very good in the face of a Dress Down. But again, we can sacrifice tokens if they get big enough, but it doesn't look like they're going to be getting big enough. Field of the Dead. Okay, so now the Fields of the Dead are making guys, which is less good for us. We've got a Dreadnought coming soon. We're trying to bop our greater good here. Sure, it's a bit annoying, but we never got to do anything with our greater good. Sad. So they can make another token with this Misty Rainforest as well. Alright, so let's add some blue mana so we get this free Ponder off. So we know there's a Stifle on top of our deck, which we want next turn. We don't really want these other two cards though. This is really annoying. I'm going to say no to shuffling the library. We're going to draw one of these carpets, unfortunately. We're going to shuffle the other one away with the Saga, but kind of hoping to find two cards I wanted there. Yep, so they're going to make another guy. Things are slowly falling apart for us over here. They're going to plow our endurance. Sure. Gains us a little bit of life, but it's not really going to help us here. Yep. So our token isn't big enough to do anything here. We can't trade with it because it's only going 1-1. So I think we're on end of turn, make a token, untap, make a token. They've got a lot of guys here, so we are... Like, we can make a massive trampler, which is a real thing. So we'll get some blue mana for this. Our constructs will be 3/3s, which is a good size. Okay, so we're going to try and stifle our Dreadnought trigger here. Okay. I don't think we need to attack with anything that isn't our Dreadnought here. Now, they could just plow this. Yeah, that's pretty bad. We're quite far behind now. Our opponent's just sort of a little bit bigger than us in terms of their control capabilities. An Uro. I could dress this down to blow up both of my tokens and make them have an Uro, which seems like a bad place to be. I think we're probably losing this game. We'll give it a draw or two, but I think we are toast here. They've put that Abundant Growth on the wrong land. They need to put it on their plains, because then they can cast Uro more easily off of it in future. Plains is one of the weaker lands in their deck, I think. Yep, so here comes the Uro. I think we can just scoop this one up, actually. Our opponent's quite far ahead. I'm not sure the carpets were that exciting here. I don't know if we want forces, though. Maybe we do want forces to, like, keep our guys alive in the situation where we need it to. The Solar Extraction on their Uro is probably not the worst either. But we kind of have that covered with a bunch of other stuff already. Maybe we want one extraction over this. I don't know if this is really a Lotus Petal-y sort of matchup, so maybe we just want another force. Again, trying to cast these great goods is going to be a little bit challenging. Are we supposed to be trying to board out our petals? Let's keep 2 in. We got a turn 3 Dreadnought here. We got some other stuff we can do. I think this is a keep. So we have a choice here whether we play out the Saga on 1 and try and just get the early Dreadnoughts going, but I don't think the early Dreadnoughts are necessarily going to be good enough. I think we need to go a little bit slower here. Now we can Brainstorm in a turn if we want to, but I don't think that's necessary. Snow-covered island. I think we're just going to play out this as a Saga, and we can maintain a Brainstorm if we need to. To get this basic island here. And just play an Urza Saga game. So we get a Trop off this Tarn. We just want to leverage all the things we have for a maximum amount of resources. What do you want here? Just keep the graveyard covered. We have to exile a card for this, don't we? Sure. So then we can replay Saga. We don't want to attack into a telegraphed endurance. It's quite easy, just go get 2 green sources and play an endurance here. We could have got a Lotus Petal to hold up for potential stifles. A carpet. How annoying is the carpet going to be? That's going to give them a lot of mana. I think we're supposed to counter this one because our... no. We've got so much damage in play though. I think we just let this go and we try and counter the thing that beats what we've got assembled rather than trying to slow them down on it. Maybe that's wrong. This is an ability we can counter from this, I believe. Expressive Iteration. Sure, that's fine. That doesn't actually deal with our big board presence. Cool. They're playing some more stuff. Just another Expressive Iteration. Which is going to be Brotherhood's End, which is something we will try and counter. An Uro. That's fine. So they had a pretty good turn there. Play this out. We can Brainstorm and then fetch away. That does stop us having a Stifle up. I think we just make a guy here. Which makes our guys into 4/4s. And we attack with our creatures. Our opponent to 12, and we're representing 15 damage next turn, although we probably need to crack our Solgar Lantern to stop them getting Uro next turn. But we can represent lethal next turn with these guys by making another token. We also get the bonus guy out of it as well, with the Phrexian Dreadnought we're about to play. A Wasteland. A Terminus. I think we will Force of Will this. Looks like they're about to Force of Will back. I think we get a tropical island here, so we can cast an Uro soon. I think we are incentivized to Brainstorm here. Like, they're nice cards we have. Okay, so they're going to Terminus our little guys, which is a shame, but... And they Wasteland our Saga. Yep. So now we ponder. We don't actually want these. Play out another Saga. Play out our Uro. Did not hit a land. We'll play this out in case we need an emergency Stifle or Plow. Minsk and Boo. How do we beat Minsk and Boo is a relatively good question. We can Stifle the triggers. Yeah, I think we're just getting overrun here because our opponent's deck is designed to go longer and be grindier. It's just a big value control deck. Like this is one of the sort of things that the initiative deck has kind of pushed out of the meta a lot, because if your opponent gets the initiative on like turn 1 or whatever, or turn 2, this deck basically just folds. Whereas what we're doing kind of gets done quite badly by this. So we can cast an Uro if we want. Which is probably an okay spot to be. It'll cost us our Lotus Petal. And leaves us not using our Urza Saga for anything this turn. But I think the Urza Saga time is gone. I think we're on green, green, blue, blue. Let me just get rid of Saga. I don't think it matters what we get rid of, does it? I don't really have any ways of leveraging it. Apart from Endurance shuffling it in. Okay, so we've got to survive a turn cycle with our Uro. We do have a Force of Will, and the Minsc and Boo can't kill it on its own. It can make this into a 7-7 though, which we'll have to plow next time. Sure, so now into the Field of the Dead. This is going to be really hard for us to beat. Our Dreadnought can do some work though. This looks like a Prismatic Ending on our Uro. I think we need to counter this. This dress down doesn't feel very good. Another Pyroblast. This is where being a red deck is really doing work for them. Are they just going to draw 4 cards off their Boo this turn then? I don't know if we could beat that, to be honest. Yeah, it doesn't feel like this deck has the tools to beat a control matchup like this. And not having Pyroblasts is a real issue. Yeah, putting Uro into hand. How do we beat this? I think we make a token. We get ourselves a Dreadnought. And we hope that it does enough. So we can hold up a Plow or we can Ponder here. I think holding up a Plow is probably slightly better. I know they've got Yorion coming. So they're now in a situation where if they put 1 block in front of the Dreadnought and we plow. Okay, so they're plowing our Dreadnought. Sure. That leaves us with a 1-1. And then they get to Yorion this turn. I think we're done here. I don't think it's worth playing this game any longer. I think we're done. Yeah, their deck just goes bigger than ours. Like, we never got to do our draw a million cards type nonsense that we were hoping to do. We just kind of got buried by their superior control game. Alright, let's go on to the next round. Okay, we're on the play. Our opponent's a 60-card deck. We have Island Ponder, some other stuff. I think we can keep this. We can play out our Lotus Petal as well to protect us from potential wasteland. Okay, our opponent mulled to 6. It took a long time thinking about it. Let's throw out a Ponder. What have we got here? So we wanted a land and we wanted a Dreadnought. A land and a Brainstorm is pretty nice though. So we can put the Uro on the bottom, then the Brainstorm, then the Misty. And we'll draw this Misty, so next time we can do a Brainstorm with a fetch land. Or if our opponent hasn't done anything, we can try an Uro is not so good when we know we don't have a land splitting off of it, but it'll cost us a Lotus Petal as well, so I don't think that's worth doing. Scalding Tarn from our opponent. Okay. I don't think we need to do the brainstorming now. I think we can wait. We know there's an Uro on top. We might want to be pitching our Uro to a Force of Will this turn. We might want to be, which means we want to draw the Uro and Marsh Flats. This could be the Grixis Delver builds that are running Underground Sea so they can cast Snuff Out. Okay, so now I think we want to be casting a Brainstorm. Okay, so you don't need the second Uro. They haven't shown us anything that requires the Swords of Plowshares yet. Without a fetch land, I'm more inclined to put the Brainstorm back than the Ponder, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to play this. I can crack this and Ponder. I think I probably can get a Tundra here. So we're looking for Phyrexian Dreadnought. Did not find a Phyrexian Dreadnought. Do we want these cards? Do I want another Force of Will? Do I want a Plow? I don't think we want these cards. Okay, a land is fine though. I'll take a land. So for the next couple of turns, we're just going to be making Saga tokens and seeing if that gets us there. Okay, so cracking a Marsh Flats. I don't think we want to stifle this. A Plateau. Underground Sea. Okay, it looks like our opponent is playing the Epic Storm. The newest build that Brian Cook was running Plateau for the purposes of casting Silence. So yeah, okay. So we'll counter that, and we'll hold up the Stifle in case our opponent puts a Storm Kill on the stack. We can Stifle the Storm trigger. You pretty much have to counter the Silence, otherwise they kill you, as a general rule. They might just have another Silence so I can go again next turn, which is probably not great for us. Great or good. We need to hold up our Stifle, and I'd rather just make some tokens to try and end the game with. If they've got another if they've got another Silence, we probably lose. But if they just go for it with having more mana, then that's probably fine for us. We are representing a hardcast Force of Will right now. A Badlands. Sure, this is definitely the Epic Storm. Burning Wish. This could be an Echo. It could just be a Galvanic Relay. Yep, so there's a Galvanic Relay. So in an ideal world, we'd like our opponent to use all their resources and then cast a Galvanic Relay, which we stifle the Storm trigger of. That is like the best case scenario for us. We don't get to make a Phrexian Dreadnought necessarily unless we draw another Stifle, but we do get to do some pretty cool stuff. Okay, so this is the Chrome Mox. What are you going to imprint here? No imprint. Lion's Eye Diamond. One more card in hand. The Galvanic Relay. So we will stifle this trigger. It's pretty bad news for our opponent. So they get one card for next turn. Rite of Flame. We'll make our guy. Did not draw a Stifle. Make a lad. We don't really have a great choice of things to make here. We don't get to do anything with the Soulguide Lantern other than draw a card, which is probably fine. We could get a Lotus Petal here to pump our guys and give us a bit more mana to work with. That's fine by me. Let's ponder. Not really where we want to be, is it? I think we just any order these and shuffle. Okay, so we attack for 4 this turn, we attack for 8 next turn, then we attack for another 8 on the next turn, they're dead. The endurance is not going to be very useful here because we're never going to get a window where the Echo Vions is in their graveyard and we have priority because it's going to go in their graveyard and immediately on the stack. So this is the Rite of Flame that they had in Exile. You cast that just in case it baits me into doing a spell. Dress down. Pretty bad considering what we've got in play right now. We just attack here, don't we? This puts our opponent to 6. So we can play one. We can crack one of these to play a greater good, which means if we need to try and find a counter spell or something, we can do that. And we still have lethal on board. That's the logic for playing that. So this turn they pretty much just need to hit Echo Vions. We've lost the ability to pitch cast Endurance, but as I said before, it's not actually going to make any difference in this matchup. Sure. So we've got game 1 versus the Epic Storm, which is always nice. We would like to board in some things to mess with our opponent. Force of Negation being a pretty good one. The Force of Vigor is okay as well. It's certainly better than having these plows in the deck. The Soulguide Lantern is never really going to be doing anything for us. If our opponent is playing this deck, they probably know what they're doing. Same reason with Endurance, but Endurance beats down. The Greater Good is just slow, but if we can play a guy into Greater Good, and that's probably quite nice. Is that good enough? No, I'm probably just looking at having like this. I don't think Surgical Extraction is worthwhile. There is an argument for the Prismatic Endings instead of Force of Vigors for when they pass the turn with permanents in play. I think I'd rather have the endings here rather than 2 for 1 in myself. Alright, we'll try this. I suspect we'll probably lose game 2 but have a reasonable fighting chance in game 3. Our hand is unplayable, so I have to mulligan this one. We need action. Okay, so we have a piece of action. We have Ponder to sculpt some more action even after we've burnt it. This seems fine to me. I think we probably put back a Tropical Island. Just a Bloodstained Mire. I think Bryant Cook top 8'd with the Legacy Prelim with this list that my opponent's playing. Thoughtseize. Sure, so we're going to lose our Force of Negation this turn, then we're going to have to find some stuff. So Thoughtseize is normally like a 1 or 2 of in the sideboard. Can they go this turn or not? With Artifact Mana, they might be able to go off. They might also just be doing a... They can do a Echo Vion's line. Right, so they want to bauble in our turn so that they get the draw on their next turn. Or they might want to keep this for Metalcraft. Okay. So they've seen this snow-covered island, so I'm going to play it. I'm going to cast this Ponder that they know about. We need an interaction spell here. Our opponent's only got 3 cards in hand. 4 cards in hand with a bauble, 5 cards in hand when they draw, which is certainly enough to do some pretty gross things. They could put an Ad Nauseam on the stack, perhaps, which is liable to beat us at this point. But next time we get to Brainstorm and Ponder, and we've certainly got some excess cards we can put back. We've got 8 hits that we're looking for, 6 Forces and 2 Stifles. Alright, we will Brainstorm. None of these are really filling me with a great amount of joy. I think we need to put back... Greater Good is just way too slow for what we're doing here. Although if we can get this online the turn before we Urza Saga, we can draw 12 cards. Which is a lot of cards. Probably better than having a Dress Down. The Dress Down is a blue card. If we want to keep the Greater Good, we need to keep the Lotus Petal, which means we're probably putting back the Tropical Island. But no, we should just put the Greater Good back and stop messing around. Let's crack this. We don't really have any white spells left in our deck, so we're just going to be getting a Trop here. Pondering. Alright, we'll play as Lotus Petal to give them the fear of Stifle at least. And then probably on Brainstorm, play as a Saga next turn. Our opponent is so far ahead right now. Another turn of Sculpting. They brainstormed and brainstormed without a fetch in between, which is pretty good for us. Force of Negation. Okay, so this is one we can work with. Alright. So if we brainstorm, we're looking for a blue card, but we already have a blue card to go with our Force of Negation. So I think we're probably just doing this and playing our Greater Good now. As weird as that is. This means that when we get the Dreadnought, we can at least get +9 cards into our hand. So our opponent's on a little bit of a clock here in terms of what we're going to have in our hand. Now, they may just be able to force through it with silencers and things. But what do we need to counterspell here from our opponent? Like, we're not putting them under pressure, so there's no reason for them to go off yet. They can wait until the Saga looks like it's going to pop. So they can have another turn. But again, they're working through these cards that they brainstormed back themselves. Okay, looks like our opponent's going. This could just be a Dark Ritual to bait out some action. A Wish Claw Talisman with 1 mana floating. Is this a bait spell or not, is the question. I think we're supposed to hit this. It does mean that our opponent, if they've got like another ritual or whatever, then they can maybe put something else on the stack that's going to be pretty bad for us. Okay. And nothing interesting. We also have nothing over here though. Oh, a Stifle there, that's pretty good. That's a real card. Now, whether or not that ever becomes useful remains to be seen. Like, we can Stifle our Dreadnought, but I think it's better off using it as a card to hit our opponent's Storm Trigger with. It's one of our interaction spells. Okay, they're just conceding there. Interesting. I guess they couldn't go this turn and they know that we're about to draw 12 cards. So, yeah, okay. We got a win on the board. Let's go to the next round. We're on the play. We can make a turn 1 Phrexian Dreadnought. Like, yeah, sign me up, I guess. That's what we came to do. We can't cast these 2 plows, though. So our hand needs a little bit of assistance. But we can make a turn 1 Phrexian Dreadnought on the play. Today we are a combo deck. Can I have my big man? We can have the big man. Now they're probably just going to like plow it or Solitude or make me sad. But we presented a turn 3 kill on the play. Street Wraith. Okay, so they could snuff this out. It should make me sad. Looks like our opponent's probably playing... Yeah, they're definitely playing Death Shadow. I have to imagine they have a snuff out here because they're going to be on 1 if they don't kill this. Fatal Push. Sure. Alright. So we're now very far behind. Yeah. If we can draw a plow, a Tundra to cast our plows, then we'd be in, like, not in a terrible spot because we'd be able to at least blow up our opponent's things. And Source Plowshares is very good against Death Shadow specifically. Thoughtseize. Sure, take one of my plows or my force, I imagine. Like, if they take the endurance, it signals they have a Murktide they're looking to play. So if they leave us with endurance though, then... Right, one of the plows. So this could be a Death Shadow. I went for a load of hoops to make a 12-12 on turn 1. It cost me 3 cards. My opponent just made a 5-5 on turn 3 that can grow up to being a 12-12 without losing any card advantage. All their things were just stuff they had. Alright, it's a 7-7. We could have stifled the Street Race trigger for them drawing a card, but I think we're probably better off saving that for a Force of Will in case they deploy a Murktide or something here and Brainstorm. Also, it doesn't stop the life loss because that's the cost, so they would still have a 7-7 Death Shadow. And a Wasteland. And they're not going to Wasteland us. I'm going to do it in our upkeep. We don't really get to play Magic if we don't have any lands, so let's try and stifle the Wasteland. A Daze is pretty backbreaking for us here. Yep, that also gives them lethal on their next turn as well. So we need to find a Tundra here. Just gives them... So play this. No, sorry, they'll only be dealing 9 next turn. So we do have one more turn to find an answer. But yeah, we are very much in trouble. It's just going to hit us for 10. There's no reason for it to hit us for 10. They may as well hold this for the purposes of Brainstorm in case I do manage to remove their Death Shadow. Okay. We have one play available to us. It's get Tundra and then plow their guy in their upkeep, just in case they have a main deck Force of Negation. Okay, now they're cracking this. I want to plow this. We have a Force of Will to try and buy ourselves the way through a counterspell here. Like, this is to stay in the game. Like, we still got to try and win the game after this. We just got to hope our opponent has no threats in hand and we can kill this shadow. Okay, so we killed the shadow and we made it so the next shadow is going to be smaller for now. What's really good is if you have 2 shadows out and you plow one of them, they both die. So we have 1 land, our opponent has 1 land, but they've got another land in hand, and they've also got a bunch of cards. Scalding Tarn, okay. 1 more land and we can cast this Endurance, which gets rid of their Murktide as a threat. Back to us. A land. A land, sure. So in our opponent's upkeep, we're going to crack our Scalding Tarns, I think. We want a Tropical Island. And we want another Tropical Island. This puts us to 2, which isn't the largest life total I've ever seen. Green, green 1. Okay, I don't have a counterspell in hand. I think you might use a counterspell there. Because it's my last card in hand, and it also makes their draws significantly worse. Because Reanimates offers a card, and Murktide offers a card. Okay, we're going to lose our white source. We only have 2 plows in the deck, the only thing that they cast. It's not actually the end of the world for us. Alright, this is a real card. This can challenge our opponent's life total quite effectively. And they clearly don't have a threat in hand, because otherwise they would have put it on the board. So maybe we can just squeak through. No play from our opponent. I suspect our opponent's hand is just full of removal at this point. That would be my assumption. I'd be very surprised if there's a Saga actually manifested in damage on our opponent's life total. But stranger things happened. Let's have a look. The list of Death Shadow I played the other day had 3 snuff outs and 1 and 2 fatal push. So they're probably hard casting a snuff out here, I would imagine. Yeah, sure. Let's make a guy. It'll only be a 1/1. But I think we get this Soul Guide Lantern out here. And we'll exile the Snuff out. So our opponent can make a Murktide if they draw it, but I don't think it's worth us playing it out. If we can get one more artifact, we have the win. No Murktide. Alrighty then. A Brainstorm. It's a pretty good one. Let's see what top of our deck has for us. It has a Lotus Petal, and it has an Urza Saga. I'm going to put these two on top in this order. Play this out. Play this out. Our creature is now lethal and requires a Snuff out from our opponent. If they Force of Will this, then they also die because they'll be on 3 life. If they daze it, we can pay. Okay, so we got it. Was not expecting that after how much we got eroded by all their cards, but they didn't have a threat, so I'll take it. Prismatic Ending, pretty good against what their deck's putting out. Force of Will, not so much. Like, they're so good at draining your resources down. I don't know if I want to be trying to Force of Will people. The Endurances, though, very good. So the Carpet Flowers, also very good. So what are we looking at here? I quite actually like having Lotus Petals in this matchup. It makes our little guys a little bit beefier, but it gives us mana to play around their mana denial. Although you could argue that the Carpet Flowers is doing the same thing, so maybe we're just cutting the petals for the carpets. That makes sense to me. Sure. Well, like this. Carpet Flowers, that's one of the cards I very much wanted to keep, so we will keep this hand. Now we can play around a daze to try and resolve our carpet as well. We don't need to play it until turn 2. Let's see what our opponent does though. Okay, they're going to Thoughtseize us. They might take the carpet here. It's the carpet or the ponder, I think, are the two choices. I'll take the carpet, sure. That suggests a wasteland might be in our future as well. Alright, let's go for a ponder and try and set up our next couple of turns. The Urza Saga is pretty reasonable against our opponent. I like to have a lot of lands in this matchup as well. And we can also do some Uro things. So I think we're putting Tundra, then Brainstorm, then Saga. This is also something they can't Thoughtseize out of our hand, whereas the Brainstorm they can. Depending on what our opponent does this turn. Like if they Wasteland, then we're not playing out this Saga. Okay, a Misty Rainforest. Cool, they're doing a Brainstorm with a fetch land, so pretty powerful. Sure, so shuffling some cards away. Taking a bit of damage. And a ponder by the looks of it. Yeah, sure. So they're not committing threats to the board and they're not attacking our hand or resources this turn. They're just doing a setup turn. Now we have options. If we play out a non-Saga land, we can play out the Uro the turn after, which is going to be quite a powerful play. And accelerate us way outside of our opponent's bits and pieces. We have a Brainstorm here that we can also use. I think I want to play out this Tropical Island. That means our opponent, if they want to Wasteland us, they just have a target of Tropical Islands. So they can't take us off white. Well, they can't take us off any of our colours. Now, we will need green-green at some point if we want to be casting our array. Could have played out the Soul Guide Lantern that turn. A Murktide Regent. I would like to cast a Brainstorm in response. We don't have any Force of Wills in the deck, but I would like to know how I'm supposed to navigate this. Interesting. Sure, this is going to stick. And it's going to kill us relatively quickly, unfortunately. So I think we play out this. We cast this guy, say green, blue, 1. Yeah, if I'd have played the Soul Guide Lantern last time, I could have ripped out their graveyard before they could Murktide. We're counting the front half of an Uro. That's pretty fine, I suppose. We know the top card of our deck is not going to be very helpful right now. I think they're just going to have us just gain chest. Purple Strix, sure. That's actually relevant because this gives them a 2-turn clock now. We'll draw another card that we don't want. There it is. So, what are we doing here? Probably playing out this into Soul Guide Lantern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we can get a petal off of the Urza Saga to cast our... Oh yeah, that's pretty annoying, isn't it? It makes that guy bigger. Not that really is what's making the difference right now. So we need to cast Urza next turn. Our opponent's only on 9. So it's not many turns of attack with an Urza, but they do have a Baleful Strix. A Wasteland, sure. So we're probably losing our Saga this turn. Or are they going to go after our lands that let us cast an Urza? Sure, we'll make ourselves a Construct. We lose our Saga. Which means we're just using one of our lands from hand to cast the Urza. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we don't actually have enough now, do we? We're kind of hoping that we could get that Lotus Petal to cast our Urza this turn. So we kind of need a fetch land. We have a Plow. I think we have to cast a Plow. And that's step 1 of our trying to not to lose the game. Stubborn Denial. Let's draw a card with Saga Land and then concede the game, I think. A Dress Down. That's not going to work, is it? No, we're just dead here. Yeah, it's the turn we could have wiped the graveyard. We probably should have done that instead of just passing with nothing going on, really. Oh, we didn't have Lotus Petals to find, did we, actually? Well, oops. I took a line that wasn't actually very good there based on my sideboarding. I'm not really getting a lot of joy out of these Dress Downs, but that doesn't mean that they're not good. This is weird. I think we're still fine with how we've boarded here. I don't think we want to be trying to fight 2-for-1s against a Death Shadow deck like that. We just want to stick ourselves a Carpet or something. Okay, so we can play a Carpet of Flowers turn 1. But if they Wasteland us, we're in trouble if we do that play. Maybe we're supposed to ponder on turn 1, just in case. We need to make sure we hit another coloured mana source. Any order, shuffle your library, yes. Okay, so you've hit a blue source. But if they Wasteland our Trop, we don't get to cast our Carpet of Flowers. Street Wraith. I don't like the immediate cycling of the Street Wraith. If you watch my Death Shadow deck from whenever I did that, maybe it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, that I made quite a point of how you want to use your Street Wraith when the cycling is good. So powering through the extra card or a ponder that you need at the time, or reducing your life total a certain amount. But if you've got action in hand, you shouldn't really be cycling the Street Wraith. That's my view anyway. Okay, so that's pretty good. I think we're just going to start off doing some Urza Saga stuff here. And we're going to play this Carpet Flowers around a daze. So I get a 2-for-1 off of my Carpet. We did, and they entered it. They exiled a Force of Will, so we get to rebuy the same play next turn, and then we can, if it works, we can use the mana that we get from it to activate an Urza Saga. If they have a Wasteland, they'll probably go after the Urza Saga, but they might go after the Tropical Island. But usually, I would go after the Urza Saga in their position. They obviously don't know our hand, and they don't know this is our only green source. Okay, they've gone after the Trop, which is awkward. It was the one thing we didn't want to happen. So we need to draw another Trop here. Okay, so we've drawn something that does things at least. So I think we are playing Phrexian Dreadnought. And then we are stifling Phrexian Dreadnought. This plays into days, unfortunately, but... Okay. So this is the Snuff Out target, which brings their life total to 13, plus the fetch land, which means they'll be able to field a Death Shadow, if that's what they have. Not having the Lotus Petals to fetch is now really annoying. I should have left one in the deck. Thoughtseize, sure. So we're going to be losing our Carpet here, I imagine. Yeah. So this makes Wastelands from our opponent very good now. And they will know that they're very good. Fatal Push on our guy. I think this is one of the matchups where the big thing we're trying to do is just very poorly lined up against what our opponent is bringing to the table. I would like to use the free shuffle I'm about to get off of our Urza Saga. So I'm going to cast this Brainstorm. We don't really want these greater goods, do we? Put those two on top. And we should have paid 1 mana there. We'll get rid of Street Wraith. Like, we have to sack this now, otherwise our opponent gets to Murktide Regent anyway, so... Oh, no, not that one. We want to exile each player's graveyard. We don't want to get hit by a Murktide Regent next turn. We do have a Plow, but we'd have to resolve our Plow when we're already sort of fighting around. This at least stops some of our opponent's best threats from coming into play. A Strix, sure, that's fine. That's a very slow clock. That's up to us. A greater good that we didn't want. Exciting. So this turn is a ponder turn. Okay, so we want lands. How many lands do we want? Next turn, we'll draw one of these. So do we want to cast the Plow this turn and then draw the Misty Rainforest next turn? I think that's probably where we want to be. So if we play this one out, we can cast a Plow if we need to. We untap, draw the Misty Rainforest, and then shuffle with the Urza Saga. We get to make one construct here. Unfortunately, we don't have any things to find, which is a real problem with the way I've sideboarded. That I'm definitely going to have to address in later rounds. Need at least to keep one Lotus Petal. One Lotus Petal in there, I think. Okay, a Brainstorm. This could still result in something scary this turn for them. Like on 13 life though, which is not the amount of life you want to be on. A Wasteland. So we're probably losing our Saga this time. Yep. So we're not going to get that shuffle, but we have a Misty Rainforest that we can shuffle with anyway. But we just don't get a 2-2 out of it. So the top card of our library is a Tundra. If our opponent does nothing, are we interested in keeping the Tundra so we can play Greater Good, which means that any Phrexian Dreadnoughts we draw aren't dead? I think if our opponent doesn't make a threat, then we maybe do that. Oh wait, no, we can't because it's double green, right? Yeah, we just need to shuffle here. Powder Keg. Sure. Yeah, we just need to shuffle this to get a trop. Oh, we can get a basic island, actually. A basic forest, sorry. We need a second green to cast our Greater Good. Okay, we have 2 dead cards and we're slowly getting clipped for 1 a turn. The Powder Keg is going to invalidate a lot of what we're doing here. This is creatures and artifacts, by the way, if you're unfamiliar with it. The reason they run this over Ratchet Bomber is because it can blow up artifact lands. So it's very good against 8-cast. Okay, our opponent's on 10. I think this is the turn our opponent plays a Death Shadow. A Thoughtseize. They're going to take the Plow here. I think it's probably worth just ploughing this since we're going to lose it anyway. It makes a Death Shadow slightly smaller. They were never going to be taking one of the Greater Goods anyway. Oh, they're not playing a Death Shadow here. Interesting. Come on, deck. Prismatic Ending. Well, we've got an answer for Death Shadow. Murktide, not so much. And they can cast a Murktide. It won't be a very big one, but it's still a threat that we can't answer right now. How many plows have we gone through? Is it just the one? Just the one, okay. So at least we've got those to draw. We can't cast an Endurance because we only have 1 green source. Okay, we're going to lose our Tundra. They know we've got 4-drop in hand, so... Okay, our opponent doesn't really have any threats though. So there is that. We can now fish it... Oh, I pressed the wrong button there, didn't I? Sure, so we can cast an Endurance if we draw one next turn. If we draw a land this turn, it'll be annoying. Okay, we did not draw a land. Our Dress Down is something we have to be very careful about because it makes the Death Shadows 13/13s. I think we can cycle this to deny our opponent a card. So this is just a 1/1 now, and they don't get the card from the end of the battlefield. And our opponent's clearly looking for a threat, so being able to stop that is something I'm relatively interested in doing. Alright, let's crack this, go get ourselves a Tropical Island. Play this as a Saga out. Play this Greater Good. Now this might eat a Daze or a Force of Will, but at least something, I imagine. But it will make our Dreadnought much better. Sure. We cannot pay. So they've wasted a Daze on a spell that's not necessarily doing any work right now for us. The Powder Keg can blow up our Urza Saga tokens very easily, so they're probably not going to put any counters on that. A Brainstorm. No fetch land for their Brainstorm, sure. So they can peck at us for 1 with their little bird. That's fine. We probably want to keep this Flooded Strand in our hand in case we Brainstorm, but we'll see what we draw and make some decisions. Death Shadow is not a problem for us. Misty Rainforest. I think we'll play out this 1 Misty Rainforest and we'll hold this one back. So we've got a fetch land to go with a Brainstorm and we can represent hardcast Force of Will. Now, they don't know that we've taken the Force of Wills out of our deck because we didn't really want the card disadvantage of them. We'd rather just have 1-for-1 removal. because their deck is relatively threat light. They could have reanimates in hand as well. Death Shadow normally runs some number of them. Some people would crack this Misty Rainforest for the marginal thinning you get out of it, but that is just not worth it when our opponent is a wasteland deck, yikes, as well as being a great thing to have with a Brainstorm when we've got dead card in hand. We will at end of turn make this guy though. Not that that's going to get us very far. Okay, this is where having the Greater Good in play would have been real nice. Where's this going to find us? So here in a situation where we may as well take out a Dreadnought to thin our deck of Dreadnoughts. Because drawing a Dreadnought is not going to do anything for us right now. We want to keep maximum cards for the purposes of Brainstorm, so I think we don't play any cards out. They'll probably just pop their powder keg soon. So we're trying to draw into Brainstorm, Ponder, and Source of Plowshares. Those are our live hits. Yep, bye-bye goes our 0 drops. In come the squad. We take some damages. And Endurance can potentially buy us a turn. Because it can block, because it's got reach, so we can block the Murktide for 1 turn. Provided we think an Endurance will live. What do we got? A Ponder, okay. That's one that can do something, potentially. What have you got for us, deck? Okay, so we found the plow we wanted. And we can put a Dress Down at the bottom, then a Brainstorm, and then the plow. We'll not shuffle our library. I think we've got a Brainstorm coming up next, haven't we? They've got 5 cards now, they can make us pay 3 dazes. So I think we play out our Trop here, just in case we need to. They've got 1 mana tap now, so it's probably best to hit it now. Do we get another turn? We can pay for 3 dazes. They have 3 lands in play. Storm Denial beats us, we're dead. Sure. So what happened in that matchup is, all their removal doesn't care about the big thing we're doing. Like, they're not on any red removal or anything, so they can just kill them like they were any other creature. And they've got a crazy amount of selection in their deck as well, because they've got, they're a Brainstorm Ponder deck too. And they're just a better controllier deck for messing with people's resources. Whereas we have these dead cards like Phrexian Dreadnought that doesn't do anything on its own, Dress Down that doesn't do anything on its own, Greater Good that doesn't do anything on its own. So we're just running a weaker deck, especially in this sort of matchup. Like, where this is really going to shine is where the normal control elements aren't good enough and you need like a big guy that is going to be difficult for them to deal with. But that's sadly not what this matchup was. Right, next round, let's go. Alright, we're on the play. We've got Island Ponder as a thing we can do. But we're going to kind of need some more mana here. I'm finding that a lot with this deck, that the mana is requiring me to jump through some little loops. But I think we do keep this. We have to get a basic island for the purposes of Wasteland here, otherwise the game is done. But because we have 2 cantrips, I think this is fine. Right, so we're going to get a basic island, I think. And a Ponder. So we have a land, which is one of the things we wanted, but do we want these Dress Downs? Honestly, I don't want to go through this many Dress Downs. They do cantrip, which isn't the worst. But that's going to be spending 2 turns playing Dress Downs to get through our pile already. Would I rather just try and draw into another land? Like, we have a Brainstorm, so I think we're just putting any order and shuffling. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely rewarded for that. So next time we can Brainstorm with a fetch land and maybe throw back this Greater Good and Dress Down depending on what we have coming up. We can also do the Dress Down, play Endurance, Archon of Cruelty. So our opponent is a Reanimator deck by the looks of it. Understood. So what are we doing here? Play this out. Cast a Brainstorm. So we need to keep a green card and our Endurance here. That's a lot of lands. I don't really want to see all of these. We can put one of them away. Probably not this one, actually. We want the second green. We also want the white, actually, don't we? So maybe we are keeping these. So maybe we're pitching Dress Down. Maybe. No, the Saga gets us Graveyard Hate. So probably get rid of this Dress Down. And then we probably want to... We can put the Tundra on top. And then we don't have to shuffle immediately if we don't want to. Okay, if our opponent casts a spell that interacts with their graveyard, we will cast an Endurance from our hand. Dark Ritual, sure. Are they going to cast some sort of hand disruption first? If they do, we fire off this Endurance in response, so these Arcane of Cruelties aren't messing with us. Exhume. Okay, this is a good one for them to cast, because this means we get our little guy back as well. So this will go to our graveyard, and then he'll get back from the Exhume, and then the cards. So if they have an Entomb here, then they've got us pretty good. Yeah, sure. We do have Force of Wills in our deck, so I guess we're... I guess we get the Tundra, so we can cast this Source to Plowshares if we need to. Okay, this is what I would not describe as it at all. So we'll put these two on top. Okay, so they can Entomb and put in something. We should have kept an Uro in hand instead of the Ponder, because that's one we're okay with discarding. Okay, so like an Archon or something. Okay, so there's a Grizzlebrand. So our opponent's going to draw some number of cards. I guess we shuffle our opponent's graveyard in. At least this round should probably be quite quick. Interesting. Let's cast a Ponder. We don't want these, do we? Okay, that didn't help. So we want to plow this guy. That's for sure. And then we want to probably deploy our Urza Saga so we can try and get some Graveyard Hate in a couple of turns. They're going to draw some cards here. Yeah, they'll probably draw another 7 here as well, because why not? They're about to gain 7 life. I would draw the 7 here. Yeah. Our chances of winning this game are very low. I suspect we're scooping in our opponent's next turn. Okay, so they've got end of turn Entomb for probably Archon of Cruelty. You don't really need another Grizzlebrand. You already got the cards. So you may as well just get the guy that's more formidable on the board. Yep, there we go. So they animate this guy. We lose a card. We're not really close to casting that. I don't think we can keep up with the Archon of Cruelty, to be honest. I think we'll just concede here, rather than showing our opponent more things. So, Force of Negations. These have got some good text, as has the Surgical Extraction. That's 4 cards I would like to have in my deck. The Dress Down can be alright here. The Plows can get us around Show and Tell a little bit, if they Show and Tell something in. But most of the time, if they're... Oh, we need these Endurances as well. But most of the time, if they're going to be hitting us with... if they're going to be putting a guy into play, the damage is most likely going to be done at that point. So we've got 6 cards we need to cut. Like, are we ever going to do this great a good thing? Like, it just never comes up. We need to keep it now because there's a green card to pitch to Endurance. So we can't really afford to cut any of our green cards here. Because we don't even have that many of them, which means we're cutting blue cards. So it means we're probably looking at cutting Dress Downs or Stifles. What can we do with Stifle? We can stifle a trigger of one of their little guys. I think a Dress Down is better than the Stifle, though. Like, we can stifle their land, so we can get rid of the Stifles. I think we probably want the Petals so that we can make a turn 1 scary threat and maybe get there. So maybe we're trimming on Plows here, and then possibly trimming on a couple of Ponders. But we do need blue cards in our deck. We need the green cards, we need the blue cards. Let's have a look at our blue card count here. 18, that's not very high, is it? Okay, so we'll keep a Ponder here. Maybe we're just trimming on Dreadnoughts and trying to win with the other stuff. That seems alright to me. Sure, we'll try like this. Alright, so we have Endurance and Force of Negation and Surgical Extraction. So this hand should be a Reanimator player. We've got Show and Tell covered, we've got their graveyard covered. They've mulliganed 6. The lower they go, the better for us, because it means that they've got less resources to attack our hand with. We have a choice of whether or not we ponder turn 1. If we ponder turn 1 looking for a blue card, then and we don't find it, then we're going to feel pretty bad. So I think we just leave it as our blue card. In an ideal world, we'd like to hardcast one of these endurances. A Bloodstained Mire. And no other play. Sure, that's good. So if we can draw a blue card this turn, then we can actually fire off that Ponder, and that'd be nice. We did not draw a blue card this turn. So I think we're on playing our Snow-Covered Island. If we can get to the next turn, so we can start hardcasting endurances, then I think we're okay. We can hardcast endurance and Force of Negation next turn cycle. Now our opponent isn't required to play now. They can wait until they find some hand disruption. But this does give us a way of actually playing into the game a little bit now. So we play this one out so we can hardcast endurance and our Force of Negation here. And just see what transpires. Underground Sea. So this could be a show and tell. A Thought Seize. If we let this hit our Force of Negation, they can show and tell us. I think we just have to let this hit right now, right? They'll probably take the Force of Negation, but we have their graveyard very covered. The thing I'm worried about is show and tell here. We can't really cast Endurance because we're to like beat down because we're looking to use its come into play ability. So next turn, they'll probably take our Force of Negation here. Then we play our Tundra and cast a Ponder. And then we're holding up hardcast Endurance. Oh, it's a Surgical. Interesting. Okay, so we drew a green card. There's also a blue card. So that is a great draw for us. Let's Ponder. Greater Good. It's a green card. So I think we put these two on top. And then this one. And we do not shuffle our library. But we will shuffle our library at the next end step. So then we can like try and play a Greater Good into Uro, which can then draw us a whole bunch of cards. So effectively Uro will be drawing us 7 and then discarding us 3, once you include its ability as well, which is a lot of cards. This is definitely not the matchup I expected Greater Good to work in, but here we are. So the Krakens and fetch lands. This is just going to be a hardcast Grief, I believe. A hardcast Grief. Well, we can't counterspell that one. Let's see what they take, and that'll inform what we do on the next turn. We can afford to take a little bit of damage from this Grief, but they might just take our Force of Negation here, which would be less good for us. They might take the Greater Good because it's the weird thing. You sometimes just take the weird thing when you see something like that. Sure, it took an Endurance. So we've got the cards we want to shuffle away, so out comes the Tropical Island. So over to us. Okay, so if we play this land, they'll know that's what we have. So I think we just want to play out this, because if we get one more turn, we should be able to win the game with the Uro. If not, we can always play our Endurance, and then with its trigger on the stack, we can sacrifice that to Greater Good to draw 3, discard 3, and sculpt our hand. That can also mean that we can get a really good Uro turn next turn and just put it into play for real. So let's see what our opponent does here. The obligatory attack. I'd rather not discard this Uro to the Force of Negation, but we don't really have a choice if our opponent's trying to make show and tell. They want to reanimate our Endurance. Yeah, that's totally fine. That is A-okay with me. You can shuffle away a load of cards from our graveyard, but we're about to draw a whole load of cards because we're going to cast this Uro into Greater Good. Okay, we're finally doing it, the thing that this deck is supposed to do. So, I think we go 1, green, blue, cast this. Unbelievable. Are you seeing this? Ah, Jesus. Not massively happy about that one. Alright, put this Saga in. So we have a choice here. We can hold up. I think we just... Oh dear, what are we doing here? We can cast an Uro. Our opponent didn't do anything that exciting last time. They know we have this Force of Negation. We can try and cast this Uro to get deeper into our deck. I think we just need to hold up our Force of Negation with backup Endurance here. Can't believe that. The one time we thought we were going to get to do our thing. I guess we let this slide and then we can Endurance it away if we need to. I put a Faithless Looting into their graveyard. Okay, that's not that exciting. Like, they are coming in for 6 now. Sure, a Faithless Looting. Oh, I can't believe we got a great good Wed. Or Ted, whichever one it is. Okay, so discard an Archon of Cruelty. So we have a reason to exile their graveyard now. But we also have this ticking clock of these big lands coming in on. So, not an ideal situation for anyone, really. Well, it's pretty good for them, but not for us. What have we got? We got a plow. That's fine, I suppose. We can do green, colourless, blue, and play this Urza out, which buys us another turn. We did not draw a land. Okay. So we can hard cast Endurance and then pitch cast Force of Negation. We can plow the Grief at end of turn if we need to, and then we get Graveyard Hate from our Saga next turn. So we're kind of starting to stabilise. The Saga's going to go in the bin, which is going to give us cards for our Uro, and then we can try and just take the game over with an Uro. But we're going to take a hit for 6 here, which is going to put us to 9, which is 2 combat steps at present. And he's got another Grief here. Reanimate. Okay, so I would like to cast my Endurance right now. Shuffle your graveyard in, please. And Entomb. What do I think the last card in their graveyard is? I think we just say no to this. If they don't have guys in the bin, it's harder for them to reanimate stuff. So if you try and counter the reanimation spells rather than Entombs, then it's a lot easier for them to just keep going. Now, if they've got another Entomb and a reanimate, then sure, we just lose. But looks like they're thinking. Okay, we're going to get a turn here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can get an Uro here, or we can make a token. So I think getting an Uro is way better. So I think we tap this for mana. Let this die. Go and get ourselves a Soul Guide Lantern. Remove their thing. And I think we cast this guy. So blue, blue, green, green. We get rid of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The exact right amount. In comes our Uro. Another plow. We can attack with this guy now. And try and put this game to bed. It puts our opponent to 1 of our next attack if they don't have any blockers. They can't really reanimate stuff. They can show and tell, and there's not really much we can do about that. Right, let's plow this. We've got spare plow, so goodbye. Okay, so scoot that one up. So eventually we had enough stuff to get through. Any other thoughts? I don't think this is even a Dreadnought game at all, really. So maybe instead of Dreadnoughts, we're looking at Stifles. Because A, they're blue cards, and B, they get to stifle a grief trigger or something like that, so I don't get discarded. But is that worth playing? Is it better than a Lotus Petal? Is it better than Dreadnought? Maybe having one of these just as another blue source. It's going to be better. Maybe we can trim 2. Alright, we'll try it like this. We could have had more plows in, maybe. We can't cast our spells. So we can Force of Negation the thing they do, but I don't think it's worth keeping his hand. It really doesn't go anywhere. Mulligan. This hand doesn't really go anywhere either. Okay, this is probably the better of the ones we've seen so far. Guess we're putting back these 2. And then using the Uro for our Endurance pitch. Now, our opponent started on 7 cards, so we've probably lost this game. Because they're just going to discard. So they're going to do end of turn Entomb, untap, try and get us, by the looks of things. So I think we'll just play out a Tropical Island. Next turn we can Brainstorm and do all that jazz. They didn't end of turn Entomb. Interesting. So maybe this is a show and tell hand. Let's see. No? Okay, this could just be a Serenity. I don't know why you cast that now. A Grief. Targeting us. Interesting. I guess we let this resolve and see which way they stack their triggers first. Okay, they stack the triggers in the correct way. I think we are casting a Brainstorm here. What do we want to hide, really? I think we want to hide our Force of Negation and our Endurance. Like, they might just be reanimating the Grief, which is something that we can deal with. But if they're using this to make a clear path to play something scarier, then I think we just lose. Which is the nature of Reanimator. Like, a Reanimator that keeps a 7-card hand is real hard to beat. Okay, they took our Brainstorm. A Doughty Voidwalker. Okay. They've gone on to that plan, have they? Interesting. So we'll play this out. We really don't want to have to pitch some of these things, but we'll see what happens. What did they pitch to the Grief? Actually, an Exhume. Interesting. A Reanimate on that guy. I guess we're doing this. I don't like this very much. The top card of our library is Force of Negation. We do not want to draw Force of Negation. Like, I guess we can cast it. We can hard cast it. But then what are we doing? Is it worth drawing this Force of Negation and just holding it up for a turn? I think maybe it is, because it'll buy us a little bit of time, potentially. Like, they could have something super scary and just get us soon. If we let's look at our exile zone as well. So they can get an Uro or an Endurance, but that's not really going to help because the Endurance will go. Sorry, the Uro will go into our bin straight away. But we're going to need to find a source to Plowshares relatively soon. And it's not a source to Plowshares. I think we hold the Misty Rainforest for the purposes of Brainstorm. If we can find a Stifle or a Dress Down, that'd be pretty good. Get ourselves a big lad. Snow-covered island. I think we play out the island in case we draw a greater good, and then we can draw 12 cards next turn. But we haven't got a lot of time before this Doughty Voidwalker kills us, because we're effectively on 9 here, because of our 2 fetches. That's not one we can counterspell here. An Urza's Saga. Guess we play this out. So we can't crack our fetch lands now, because we're going to go to 2 on this turn. So we need to find a Brainstorm, basically. I guess Brainstorm will bust at this point. Now, we've already had 2 Brainstorms come and gone, so I think we're going to lose this game. We did brick and hit lands quite a lot. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens to your opponent and it feels good when you get a little bit lucky. Alright. Come on, deck. Sure. I don't really care about that, to be honest. Force of Will. No, we are just dead. Sure. So we kind of bricked out in that last game. We did mulligan quite hard and we got punished by our opponent just forcing us into 2-for-1ing ourselves to get rid of their graveyard and stuff. And yeah, they kept on 7. We didn't. Their deck is intrinsically more powerful, but we have like more reactive elements. However, it didn't really pan out because we didn't have the right pieces at the right time. And the sideboard Duke into Doughty Voidwalkers was pretty good. We're an Uro deck as well, so it has a lot of value there. Now, if we'd have found a Stifle early on and could have just like Stifle Dreadnoughted, we'd be right. If we'd have shuffled this away, we would have been able to see 1 more card of our deck slightly earlier, but I doubt that would have made a difference, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it was just a case of the mulligans really put us to bed there. Speaking of being put to bed, we got 1 round to go, so let's have a crack on that one. We're on the play. We have a Brainstorm. We've got Stifle. We got some good stuff here. We can keep this. We can turn 2 Brainstorm. In an emergency, we can Brainstorm as well on turn 1. I don't really want to do that if we can help it, though. Our plan is to lead out on probably Misty Rainforest so that we're wasteland proof. And next turn we play the Tropical Island, we hold up, Brainstorm, shuffle. Paducah Bog. Okay, so our opponent is on some sort of deck with crop rotations in by the look of it. That's my take on it anyway. About this Trop. I don't think we need to play out this Lotus Petal. Like, if we're going to get him to Turact or something, I'd rather have a Lotus Petal as a bonus card to throw away. Basic swamp, so we're looking at something a bit pox related here. Well, we were going to cast Brainstorm anyway this turn, right? So let's cast it now, just to get maximum information. I do not want to draw this greater good. And these dress downs seem like playable, but they're blue cards, I guess. I don't really want this Soul Red out either. Sure. Our plan is to stifle the trigger from the Hex Mage. I think we're just going to get a trop here. So we can play this out. And I think we can play out one Lotus Petal here. We could just make an Uro. Just hard cast an Uro here. But if we don't have a land, we're not going to be able to keep up our Stifle, and we might get caught out by this. But we can just cast this Uro now, trading one petal. Is it worth trading a petal when our petals are going to be so good making our Urza Saga tokens big? I think we just pass a turn here. Okay, it's just green-black depths by the looks of it. Minsk and Boo. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Not one I was expecting, truth be told. Let's dress down in response. They want to remove the counters from my Urza Saga. Do I care about that, in truth? I don't think so. I don't think it's worth, because, like, I'm already worked Dark Depths, to be honest. Okay, so now we can counterspell this. Excellent. So our Urza Saga will get some counters next turn, anyway. If I'm right. It gains one counter a turn. So it means we don't get the cool phase again. If we play this out now, we're going to need more mana next turn. I think we're just going to cast this Uro. Sure, I might as well put this in. We'll play out this Lotus Petal in case we need it. We can trade 2 petals for a construct, which isn't really worth it, I don't think. But we can trade 1 petal for a construct if we draw a land. So we'll see what happens. We've got ourselves a Stifle if our opponent's going to play a Dark Depths. We're just going for another Minsk and Boo here. Okay, so we can stifle some triggers somewhere along the way here. But it looks like we're just going to take a little bit of pounding from this guy. Sure, so we've got some Urza Saga abilities going on. Let's land. Don't really need right now. So we can trade 1 petal for a token, which is fine. Happily do that. Probably crack this Misty Rainforest for a Tundra. We're also in a stage where we can kill an Uro. What we might be able to do is put an Uro on the stack, get that into play, force our opponent to minus their Minsk and Boo, and then stifle that trigger. And then that should be pretty good, hopefully. So he's going to make a big Boo. But we can make a lot of guys here. Sylvan Scrying. So this is probably going to go and get them the Dark Depths, one would imagine. A Caracas. Interesting. That was not what I was expecting to see from my opponent. Right, so we'll crack this in a turn. We're going to get ourselves a Tundra. And we will make a guy. And we'll make a guy. It'll cost us 1 token, but 1 petal, but that's fine. We have a choice to make about our Phrexian Dreadnought here. So we're definitely making 1 token at least. And I think we do make the other token. So the first one of these can get us the Lotus Petal. So we can make a Phyrexian Dreadnought if we want, but we need to keep the Stifle, otherwise they can just Minsk and Boo us out of the game here. So I think we're just getting Petal. We need to kill Minsk and Boo here. The opponent's got 2 cards in hand. I'm really fascinated by the choice of getting the Caracas there. Like, it's just for the Uro, but I don't know, maybe... Like, you've got these 2 Sagas on board. Okay, yeah, so we managed to win there. Maybe they had a better option than Caracas. I'm not sure. They got some other cards in hand there. So we managed to win that one. So, I have to imagine our opponent's got Dark Depths in their deck, which means Prismatic Ending is going to be good. Force of Negation counters Minsk and Boo. I think this matchup depends if they have what their removal is like as to whether the Dreadnoughts are going to be good. I get the impression they're going to be doing something with their graveyard, though. It just felt like there's going to be loans in their deck, so I think we want the endurances here. But they're more to cast than to pitch. How convinced am I about these cards? So none of these cards feel very good to me. So maybe we're trimming on some of this package. The Stifles do feel good. The Dress Downs feel pretty bad. Trim on those a bit more. We're still looking at cutting all these cards. Maybe look at a couple of Lotus Petals. I don't know. Like it just seems like the core engine of this deck is just not very good. We never get to do our thing at all, which I think is a problem with the thing we're doing more than anything. Maybe we get rid of a Dress Down and just play like just a bank control. Like I just feel like we should just be playing bank control instead of what we're playing. But if someone shows me a fun deck, I'm going to give it a go, aren't I? So, all right, this hand will not lose to Marit Lage, or it's unlikely to lose to Marit Lage at least. And we can do an Urza Saga plan. Seems fine. An Urborg. A Thoughtseize. So we're probably going to lose our Plow here. The Stifles that our opponent knows about makes them a lot worse now. But we can go and get a Dreadnought off of our Saga in a few turns, so maybe we just play the Saga out straight away. Make our opponent think we drew a Petal or Ancient Tomb or something. A Ghost Quarter. So we're probably losing our Urza Saga here. Just a Hexmage, sure. So we've got Stifles for this land. Or Lass even. So now we have a Tundra in hand, so I should play... The only problem is I play the Tundra and they Ghost Quarter it before we Stifle. We don't get to do that because we only have one basic in our lands in our hand. So yeah, we're kind of having to do this now with our Stifles, I think. If they've got like Thoughtseize, Dark Depths, then boy howdy are we in trouble. Interesting play. Sure. I really wanted a forest. A Sylvan Scrying, sure. Dark Depths. We do have Stifles here, so... Do I want to Brainstorm? My hand's kind of stinky. I want to Brainstorm. Yeah, these sounds good. So I put our basic on our deck. I don't think we need another Urza Saga yet. We're going to draw it though anyway, but that's fine. So they can crop rotation now. So we should have waited... Well, it doesn't really matter when we do it. We don't have the ability to Stifle right now. So if they crop rotate, but that's what these Swords of Plowshares are for. Maybe I'm just supposed to hold up that island there. Maybe that's a misplay. So they can crop rotate and make a 2020 now if they want to. Or they're going to him to Turek us. They're going to cast another Sylvan Scrying. They're going to go for crop rotation now and make the Dark Depths token whilst my Stifles are down. Sure. They're going to gain 20 life. And we're going to get 12/12. We'll float 1 mana, I suppose. If they have Not of This World in their hand, we lose the game. Do we get a Lotus Petal instead? I think we get a Lotus Petal just to make sure we don't lose the game here. Okay, they didn't have a Not of This World. So we could have got the 12/12 then, but if our opponent has the Not of This World, we lose. So I think it's worth taking it a little bit slower because we have this Saga coming anyway. Our opponent doesn't have a lot of resources going on anymore. I've played enough depth deck, as you know if you watch my Depth December videos I made. Sure, we can't Stifle this, but we can see what they get. A Vespin Stage, sure. This is harder for us to interact with because pretty sure we shuffled away that forest, but it's back again. Alright, so we've got an Urza Saga ticking up now. And then we've got a Stifle to try and slow down our opponent's making of the Dark Depths here. Play this one out. Unless they've got a Spirit Guide, they couldn't have made it that turn anyway. Sylvan Scrying. I guess we just have to let that happen. So this is probably going for like a Yavimaya type thing or an Urborg. Yeah, there you go. This allows our opponent to make the 2020. Because they can tap the Dark Depths for it. Alright, so we will make a guy. We can tap this for black if we want to. Okay, so representing 20 damage ourselves. Got some nice symmetry to it, I suppose. We don't know if they're going to have a Knot of this World in their hand. If they have no cards in hand when they go for it, then I'm happily just plow it. But otherwise, buying a turn. So we have to stifle this trigger. This activate ability, sorry. Not really a great one, but here we go. Nothing, I suppose. Attack with all my lands. Play our land. So we've got an endurance, which can buy another turn of blocking as well. So they're probably going to do the same thing again this time. That's okay with me, I guess. Another Dark Depths. Let's try and plow this. We're going to keep this in hand for brainstorm purposes. Okay, so a crop rotation, and they can make another 20/20. Oh yeah, yeah, they love doing it, don't they? They love it. So our plan is now make an endurance to block the 20/20, which might work. Damage will only be dealt in increments of 20. That's the rules. Let's crack this to get ourselves a trap. Our opponent blocks that, and they take 8. So I think we just have to sit back and hope that our endurance works. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. If it's an Abrupt Decay, we lose. Sajiri Step. What are you going to name? White, probably. Chooses blue. Okay. Green. Green, blue. Is this good enough? Okay, so blocking their guy was good enough because we had the lethal on the backswing. Alright, so we finished with a 2-3. Let's talk about the deck. So, 2-3, not a great record. We lost to some decks that were doing the Death Shadow deck, which has kind of got a similar shell in some respects in terms of like you've got your counterspells, you've got your cantrips and stuff, but instead of running like all of these really clunky cards that are very bad on their own, it just runs good spells. Like its clunky spells are things like Street Wraith and Reanimate, which are not particularly clunky because they always have a use for the most part, and you know they kind of tie in with what the deck's doing without being bad cards in and of themselves. Now, a 4-mana enchantment like Greater Good is a card that we never got to do anything with. The one time we got close to doing it was against Reanimator, and they just got rid of our Greater Good the turn before we got to do anything with it. So that's pretty bad. Honestly, like, I don't see the point of trying to do things with Phrexian Dreadnought at the moment because it's not very good like it used to be. So we live in a world of prismatic endings, abrupt decays, snuff outs, fatal pushes now. Like all the removal that people are playing, apart from lightning bolts, it all kills Phyrexian Dreadnought. So you jump through all these hoops. Like we made turn 1 Phyrexian Dreadnought a couple of times, and it was rubbish. It didn't do anything. And the Greater Good, you can draw a load of cards of it if you get it running, but it just seemed like a pipe dream. Like if we were just playing, if these cards were just good Bant coloured cards, then our deck is just better. Like the Urza Saga as well. So, you know, these Lotus Petals, we could strip all this out, have a better mana base, because the mana base here isn't spectacular, and there's only 20 lands. I think you maybe want a little bit more if you're trying to cast Greater Good in your deck. I understand that Lotus Petals are to help that, but not necessarily. So you could basically change all this up, put in 2 more endurances, and just have like a selection of good cards, and your deck would be like many, many times better. Like there are bank control decks kicking around, and I don't think control is in a very good spot now because of the initiative, but I think it's in a better spot than this. Like I guess this is ideally supposed to make a Dreadnought to then bash into your opponent with the trample against the initiative and just really sort of clock them well, protect it with like a little bit of something. But those decks have lots of removal, so I'm not even sure how good Dreadnought's going to be. It's not as if Dreadnought dodges their the removal they've got, and they can just blink it with Touch of the Spirit Realm. So I don't really know what this deck is supposed to be doing in the format, if I'm being honest. Like it's kind of it's a fun, cool plan, but I don't think it lines up very well against what good decks are doing, which is a shame, because you know Phyrexian Dreadnought once upon a time was like the man. That was like the big scary thing that decks were playing. Like Stifle Naught back in the day was a great deck. You play that, and then you like play a Standstill or whatever, and have all these sort of cool stuff. But again, Standstill was another card that is not as good as it used to be, and it's just outclassed because so many things come under it, and so many things deal with it. There's a game on my channel that I played against a Standstill deck a while back, and I popped like 3 of their Standstills and killed them. Obviously, this isn't a Standstill deck. I'm just saying that cards over time, they go in and out of the meta for various reasons, and I think Phyrexian Dreadnought, people like it because you can get it off of as a Saga, which is cool. I think that's an interesting thing, but I don't think Phrexian Dreadnought is very good as a card, which is the problem. Now, if you're playing something like Hushbringer, like I've played the Hushbringer Dreadnought deck, and the Hushbringers are okay, but again, I did lose games where I just had these dead Dreadnoughts in hand, and I don't think you can afford to have cute cards that don't do anything on their own in a format as aggressive and fast as Legacy is. It's very punishing, and even when you get your thing out, it's not good enough a lot of the time. The Stifles today were great. Stifle was good, Dreadnought bad, and Dress Downs were bad as well. Like, they just cantrip for us. We never really got to do anything with them. We got to stop our opponent drawing a card once with it, was about the best it had, and it pitched to a Force of Will once. Like, I understand what it's in here for, but I think, honestly, if you wanted to do some sort of dress down deck, you're probably looking at just playing some pitchcast elementals as well, and maybe going that route, so at least all the cards in your deck are good, but you have the flexibility with dress down as maybe, like, you can use it to cheat your guys into play, or you can use it to, like, hose what your opponent's doing. But playing dress down in as a Saga deck also doesn't feel good, because sometimes you can't even cycle it. I think there's a lot of different threads pulling in different directions with this deck, and I don't think it maximizes on any of them. I think the Rug Stifle Naught deck that I've played against a few times is better than this, but again, it still has the same problem. The amount of times I've beaten that deck, and it's got a bunch of cards in hand, because it's got all these clunky pieces that don't do anything, is a lot. Uro is still a very good Magic the Gathering card. Like, it's not as good as it used to be, because the format is a lot faster, and you don't necessarily have the time to grind out an Uro win. But I think if you're a control deck and Uro is your top end like finisher, like, that's fine. It's more about whether or not you have the tools to control the game. But the Uro is just going to set you apart nicely. So yeah, this 20 land deck with Uros in, trying to cast a 4-drop. I just don't think this deck is where I want to. Like, the list that was sent to me, I think somebody did 5-0 with this list, and like, I'm kind of perplexed as to how to be perfectly honest. Like, I think it's a fun sort of deck, but I think the amount of luck you need to get, like, yeah, sure, we did draw half of our combo, if you want to call it that, a few times, rather than drawing, you know, the whole shebang and getting our guy down. But even when we did draw it didn't really do very much. So I'm just not convinced that this is really where you want to be. I think there might be a Dreadnought deck out there, but there's so many better things you can do with Saga than get a Dreadnought, really. Because there's a lot of times where you kind of need to have the right bits and pieces. And if you've invested time and mana into this Saga, you don't want to dress down just to get a Dreadnought, because all you're doing is, instead of going wide with your like 2 Saga tokens, you're going tall with your Dreadnought by killing your Saga tokens. So it just sort of, I don't know, it just doesn't really fit together for me. I think I preferred the, I think it was Bosch and Roll played a deck that was Mosswart Bridge for Phrexian Dreadnought. So it was using the Dreadnought as a way of activating its bridge to do, like, casting some big silly things. I think the payoff for doing that is way higher than the payoff for this. And I think it's just about as reliable, to be honest. So I think you'd rather play something with a higher ceiling if the floor is going to be just as low. That's sort of my take on this. Sorry, it's a bit of a downer, but you can't. Not every deck you're going to play is going to work for you. And I think if you get really lucky, this deck can do some decent stuff. But I think if you were to take this into a tournament, you're not going to top 8 with it unless something miraculous happens, to be honest. I just don't think Dreadnought is a card that's particularly good in the format at the moment. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. I also think the mana base needs to work on here as well. But anyway, so that's the the league today. I hope you enjoyed it, even though it wasn't the most successful of leagues. There was definitely a funny play where our opponent wear-teared our thing the turn before we got to do the cool thing that our entire deck was designed to do. But I think it's a bit of a pipe dream trying to achieve it, really. Alright, if you're still here, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and why not leave a comment? Let me know what you like, dislike, and what you want to see on the channel. The worst I can say is no or ignore you, right? So why not help me out? Okay, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.